Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jasodanandana Brajajanada Jana. Jasodanandana Brajajanada Jana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Puja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Puja Vihari. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritam Narom Sheva Narottamam Deva Sarasantam Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraya Nashnapareshu Abhadreshu Nitam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Jai, thank you everyone for coming to this spontaneous class because sometimes, well I say all the time, Krishna wants you to practice what you preach. And many times I suggested to Mother Krishna Archana, you should give a spontaneous class. But I never gave a spontaneous class because the opportunity didn't come. But apparently now it did. So now I have to practice what I preach. That way I can actually give her advice for something I actually did myself. So today we'll be reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th Canto, chapter 51, verse 49. I'll just go word for word, so repeat after me. Pramatam Uchair Iti Kritya Chintaya Pravrida Labam Vishayeshu Lalasam Twam Apramata Sahasabipadyase Kshul Lelihano Ahir Ivakum Antakaha Pramatam Uchair Iti Kritya Chintaya. Prabhu, is that the right meter? Is there another meter? Maybe we can start all over. Help me. Okay. Starting over. Spontaneous. I'll start all over. Pramatam Uchair Iti Kritya Chintaya. One more time. Pramatam Uchair Iti Kritya Chintaya. Pavidya Lobam Vishayeshu Lalasam. Swam Apramata Sahasabi Padyase. Shulelihin Hanoahir Ivakum Antakaha. Pramatam Uchair Iti Kritya Chintaya. Pavidya Lobam Vishayeshu Lalasam. Swam Apramata Sahasabi Padyase. Kshule Lihano Ahir Ivakum Antakaha. Jai Hare Krishna. Anyone else? No? Okay. Word for word. Pramatam, thoroughly diluted. Uchaihi, extensive. Iti kritya, of what needs to be done. Chintaya, with thought. Pravrida, increased fully. Lobam, whose greed. Vishayeshu, for sense objects. Alalasam, hankering. Swam, you. Apramataha, not deluded. Sahasa, suddenly. Abhipadyase, confronts. Shoot, out of thirst. Leilihanaha, licking its fangs. What does that say? Ahi, a snake. Eva, as. Akum, a mouse. Antakaha, death. Translation and purport by the disciples of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Translation. A man obsessed with thoughts of what he thinks needs to be done, intensely greedy, and delighting in sense enjoyment, is suddenly confronted by you, who are ever alert. Like a hungry snake licking its fangs before a mouse, you appear before him as death. Purport. We may note here the contrast between the words pramatam and apramata. Those who are trying to exploit the material world are pramata, deluded, bewildered, maddened by desire. But the Lord is apramata, or alert, sober, and unbewildered. In our madness, we may deny God or his laws, but the Lord is sober and will not fail to reward or punish us according to the quality of our activities. Again, Temanandasya, Gananjana Shalakayak, Shakshumile Tamyena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha, Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam, Stapitanyena Bhutale, Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam, Vancha Kapaturubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha, Patitanam Pavinebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai. Thank you everyone for coming. And once again, Christian gives us many opportunities to practice what we preach. So, like I reiterate before, I share not only with Mother Krishna Archana, but many devotees. If an opportunity comes to give a spontaneous class, then you should take it, because not to say you're not dependent on Krishna, but definitely you're depending more on Krishna than your own preparations or your abilities. And it's actually an opportunity to deepen your humility, because you're really actually dependent on the Lord's mercy. For some, it may not be the case, because some people are more natural speakers than others. Like my brother is more natural speaker than I am. But anyway, I'll try my best, because my motto is this: if we try our best, then God will help us. And if we try to be the best, then God will humble us. But the disclaimer is, even if we try our best, it doesn't mean God will help us also. But that is also helping us, because we know we can't become proud if we don't do too well. So either way, the Lord's just looking for you to try your best. So here I am trying my best today. So, as usual, I'll start off with the quote, which I had to look up on my phone. I'll start off with the quote that sets the theme of what we'll be discussing today. And this is by, I suppose, a Greek philosopher, Seneca the Younger. Does anyone know? Seneca? No. So he says, what does he say? Make this larger. He says, quote, "It is within the power of every man to live his life nobly, but of no man to live forever. Yet so many of us hope that life will go on forever, and so few aspire to live nobly. End quote. So let me repeat that. Quote, it is within the power of every man to live his life nobly, but of no man to live forever. Yet so many of us hope that life will go on forever, and so few aspire to live nobly. End quote. So, in other words, this quote is essentially saying this: no one can prevent their death, but everyone can prevent the death of their character. Ironically, everyone is eager to prevent something which is unpreventable, namely their death. But no one is eager to prevent something which is preventable, namely the death of their character. Therefore, the Bhagavatam says, Guru nasasya swajano nasasya, pita nasasya, janani nasasya, daivam natasya napatisha sasya namochayeya samupeta mritum. Mritum means death. So this verse from the 5th canto, chapter 5, verse 18, very famous. It says, one is not a qualified guru, spiritual master, Pita, father, Janani, mother, Apatis, husband, or Daivam, demigod, if he cannot deliver his dependents from mritum, death. Now, somebody from an external point of view may think, oh, you have a guru, and I don't have a guru. You have a mother. Of course, we all have mothers. We all either have mothers, fathers, or a spouse. But still, if you have a guru and I do not have a guru, you die, I die. So how is the guru delivering you from death? And not only that, we're supposed to be, we're not meant to be mukti yogis, those who want to prevent their death, but bhakti yogis, those who want to prevent the death of their character. So somebody may think, oh, you have a guru, I don't have a guru, you die, I die, everyone dies. So how is your guru preventing you from death? And not only that, Lord Chaitanya says, Nadanam najanam nasundarim kavitam vajaga ishikamaye mama jamari jamarishware bhavata bhatir ahaitu ki twayi. Emphasizing jamari jamarishware bhavata bhatir ahaitu ki twayi. What does that mean? The Lord says, Lord Chaitanya says, I do not care that I may come to this world birth after birth. So if your guru is neither delivering you from death or repeated birth and death, because if you want to come back and again in it, then what type of death is he delivering you from? The death of your character, obviously. So the difference between, like the body cannot endure and the soul can never die. But our character is different. It can either die or it can either live or be revived. So that's the difference. And so we see, for example, because today's verse, it describes that a man obsessed with thoughts of what he thinks needs to be done. So what do we obsess with needs to be done? Usually either our deadline, right? But if you have a deadline at your job and Yamaraj approaches you, then he'll say, your line is dead or about to die. So when death approaches us, what do we think is so important in our life? Yes, we have to work our job, but as far as other petty stuff is concerned, setting others straight, Prabhu, I want to set you straight. I want to humble you. But if you're in a building and the building is on fire, samsara davana nanalila loka dranaya karuna ganaganatvam. We're all surrounded by a forest fire. And even Lord Chaitanya says is at the beginning of the Shishashaka prayers, Chaito Darpana Marjana, Bhava Maha Davagni. We're surrounded by this forest fire. So suppose you're in a building and you want to set other devotees straight. You want to give them a piece of your mind, right? This is what we think needs to be done, right? This is what the verse says. But it says we're approached by the snake of death. Or there's many forms to die too. And take one of them, the main one where we sing every morning, or the Shishashaka prayers. We're surrounded by a forest fire. So suppose you think what needs to be done, setting other devotees straight, but the building's on fire. Hey, Prabhu, I know the building's on fire, but you need to hear this. When you're at the time of death, you really realize how useless every other conversation is. It's stupid. So and not only that, we're actually surrounded by death at every moment. Nobody knows when they're gonna die. So for those who are truly wise, or as this verse says, apramata, those who are not deluded, those who are deluded do not realize they're surrounded at death at every moment. So therefore they waste time in what they think needs to be done, setting other people straight, or being the number one devotee, being the number one position. So many things, so many stupid, petty things you waste your time with. But those who are apramata, they realize, since I'm surrounded by death at every moment, the snake of death, the fire of death, or the ocean of misery, drowning. I could drown at any moment in the ocean of death. Then I'm not going to waste my time on anything, and I'm going to utilize my time for Krishna consciousness. And this is the Bhagavatam's instructor, Shrama Eva Hi Kevalam. Anything you do in this world, but if you have no attraction for the Lord, then you're wasting your time. And so this is basically what's being essentially described in this verse. Now, how does our character die? It's very simple. Suppose there was criminals, and they were known to be incarcerated for, let's say, they're a serial killer, homicide. Now, suppose the somehow or other they escape from prison, these homicidal maniacs. So if these prisoners escape from prison, what will happen to society? And they came into your neighborhood. What do you think will happen? Can anyone volunteer? Chaos, yeah, I'm looking for something specific regarding today's verse. All right, here's the opposite word, homicide. You can't get more, what will happen if a homicidal maniac escapes from prison in your neighborhood? Yeah, he's gonna kill you. That's the opposite word, right? So, in much the same way, we can understand from our teachings that just as a homicidal maniac who escapes from prison will cause your death. So when our bad qualities escape from us, they cause the death of our character, right? And so, in other words, well, here's a story in this regard. I usually give the analogy recently, but I'll just share the whole story. So once upon a time, a father wanted to teach his 18-year-old son, Jason, a lesson on taming the tongue. Why? Because all throughout Jason's life, he was always the most popular kid. He was a straight-A student. And he was the most popular person on his basketball team. Consequently, Jason became very proud by thinking, I can say anything to anyone and get away with it. But his father warned him. He says, my dear Jason, it doesn't matter how powerful we are or how powerful we think we are. We can always be humbled by Almighty God. But like most teenagers, Jason did not listen to his father. The instructions went in one ear and out the other, or they probably didn't even go in the ear. But circumstances will humble him the hard way, like for most of us. So during Jason's freshman, sophomore, and junior year in high school, he always made the basketball team. But during his senior year, he got cut from the team. Why? Because his best friend, Eric, told him that the new basketball coach for his senior year was the father of one of the students he bullied all throughout high school. So, the moral of the story is, just as criminals who escape from prison will cause problems for all of human society, so when our bad qualities escape from us through our words and our actions, they cause problems for us and potentially for others, right? How does the government subdue criminals? With security guards. So it's described, Yasyasti Bhaktir Bhagavatiya Kinchana Sarve Gunais Tatra Samasate Surahai. Wise person subdues their bad qualities by cultivating the good qualities. We subdue pride with humility, envy with appreciation, and vengeance with forgiveness. So there's a nice quote, as I mentioned many times before. It says, as long as a word remains unspoken, you are its master. Once you utter it, you are its slave. And so also there's another one is good to repeat also. It says, watch your thoughts. they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, it becomes your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. Dhyayato vishayam pumsa sangase shubhajayate sanga sanjayate kama kama krodo bijayate. Kroda bhavati samoha samoha shiti vibramaha shiti bramsha buddhinasho buddhinasha pranashati. So this verse in the Gita, chapter 2, verse 62 through 63, it describes the domino effect of our fall down. And where does our fall down begin? With kama, our desires. And where do our desires begin? Within our mind. And so just like there was a very nice program yesterday from at the Russian program. I forgot Prabhu's name, but he gave a really wonderful class. And if I had the opportunity, there was many devotees kind of pouring out their hearts. So I didn't want to be the party pooper, so I didn't say anything. So I just let them ask their questions. I'm usually have a reputation for talking too much, so I was like, let me just sit here. But if I had the opportunity to ask a question, my question would have been this. Parishya Maharaj, he committed a mistake. And what was that mistake? He had a good track record for being a great devotee, right? He's come from a royal, both spiritual and material royal lineage. Not only is he descendant of Krishna and the Pandavas, he's wealthy also. So, and he had a good track record for being an excellent devotee. But he did something really stupid. That's out of character for him. When he was hunting in the forest, he was very, after hunting, on a hot day, he was very tired and thirsty. So he went to the ashram, the hermitage of a nearby sage. And this sage name was Samika Rishi. And when Parishya Maharaj entered the hermitage of Samika Rishi, he asked for a cup of water. Excuse me, sage, may I have a cup of water? But the Rishi, he was in meditation. Excuse me, sage, may I have a cup of water? You're like, oh, he's ignoring me on purpose. Oh, he's very arrogant. So these are, what you could say, pramata. He was deluded by his ego. He was thinking, by Krishna's arrangements described, of course, Yoga Maya. But he was thinking, he's ignoring me on purpose. But without going into too many details, because I don't want to get off track before I forget something else I want to mention. But long story short, because he was so offended, or his ego was offended. Generally when our ego is offended by either somebody ignores us, neglects us, criticizes us, rarely physically attacks, but still, the natural biological response is revenge. So we have two types of responses, biological and theological. So a biological response when we have provoking situation is definitely either retaliation in your mind, in your words, or in your actions. So Prabhupada in chapter 89 of the Krishna book, he says there are three types of offenses you could commit towards others. Those within the mind, those with your words, and those with your body. So this is the biological response. But we see that the great saints, in order to keep themselves out of trouble, they respond to circumstances. They give a theological response. And what is that? Biological response means pride, envy, vengeance. Theological response means humility, appreciation, forgiveness. But sometimes, even if we have a track record, the biological conditioning is so powerful that sometimes we forget these instructions in the heat of the moment. So this is precisely what happened to Parishya Maharaj. So he committed a mistake. He was offended. He put the dead snake around the sage without the sage awareness, so he left. And then the sage's young son, Shringi, he was like, this king, he's so demoniac, I will curse him to die within 7 days. But Parishya Maharaj, he did not know the curse was sent out in a universe. So when he got back to his palace, he was thinking, maybe I jumped to conclusions. Maybe the sage did not ignore me on purpose. So he says personally, he was remorseful, had given the opportunity to apologize, he would have apologized. But he was at least internally remorseful. So he was describing this to some of his servants, I believe. He says, whatever consequence may come as a result of my offense, may it come. He did not know what the consequence was. So at that moment he said this, the letter came, the curse came to him. Maybe one of his servants told him, my dear king, the curse is that you'll die within 7 days. What? No, he didn't say that. That's what we would say. That's almost like you run a red light or you get a traffic ticket, and then your punishment is death, capital punishment. That's basically what Parishya Maharaj went through. But we see these great saints that they make, what do you say? They make a molehill. They make a molehill out of a mountain. In other words, they make a problem seem smaller than what it actually is. He was like, whatever curse may come, that's like I said, getting a ticket, a traffic ticket, and you get death, and you say, oh, no problem, it was my fault. So he made a molehill out of a mountain. We, on the other hand, we make mountains out of molehills. Even if we commit an even worse mistake, still we explode, I do not deserve it. And therefore we see lawyers, they get hired to cover up everyone's mistakes. But unlike the conditioned souls or those who are pramata, deluded by their egos, Parishya Maharaj, he did not, what's the word? Whatever consequence came from his mistake, he just accepted it. Now, it's easy for people to criticize mistakes we perform externally, right? And sometimes it's easy for us to correct our behavior when we commit a mistake, when we say something, right? When you say something that you regret, then you're like, okay, people heard it, or I commit a mistake like Parishya Maharaj, I performed some words or some actions. These are perceivable, right? So naturally the tendency is either, since other people could see it, then you may have the impetus to either apologize voluntarily or involuntarily apologize, like Lord Krishna made Durvasa Muni apologize to Ambarish, or Daksha was forced to apologize to Lord Shiva. But this is a very important point, devotees. So if we commit an external mistake by saying something or doing something, but we're not so inclined to be remorseful when we commit an offense internally in our thoughts. How many offenses do we commit on a daily basis with our thoughts? But if we had to apologize to people for every time we committed offenses within our mind, then we'll probably be apologizing all day long. But my whole point is that we're not inclined to correct our thoughts because no one can see us. So we have to be accountable. So the question is if we don't have any taste for the holy name, Bahujama Kade Yadi Shravanam Kirtan Tabutana Paya Krishna Pade Premadan. This verse, from the very famous verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 8. Let me think. Adi Leela, chapter 8, verse 16. It says, even if you chant the Hare Krishna Maha mantra for millions of births, but if you commit offenses, you may get some benefit by being born in a devotional family or some wealthy family. You might get some agyata sukriti, some pious sukriti, but you will not get the premadan, the love. And without any love, then you're miserable all the time. You're just finding fault, you're complaining, despite chanting Hare Krishna. And we can ask ourselves, if that's going on despite, because we're supposed to get ecstasy from the Maha mantra, Krishna Nam, Maha mantra, Eta Swabhava, Yejape Tare Krishna Upajaya Bhava. This says, just by chanting the Krishna, Hare Krishna Maha mantra, we're supposed to get some bhava, some ecstasy. Now, why aren't we getting the ecstasy? We can ask ourselves that. Well, I was hearing a lecture from Prabhupada just yesterday or 2 days ago, and he used the example of a mango fruit. And he describes the 3 stages of chanting the Maha mantra. Now, does anyone know the 3 stages of chanting the Maha mantra? Can anyone share that? What are the three stages? Yeah. So Subal Prabhu says, yes, like Prabhupada says, the three stages of chanting is nam aparad, meaning we're committing offenses. And where do those offenses begin? With our words? With our actions? No, with our thoughts. And then if we have no taste for the holy name, then we have to question what is my thought process? So nam aparad, the next stage is namabas, the clearing stage. And then Shuddhanam, where you actually feel happy chanting the Maha Mantra. You know, like, Hare Krishna. So we have to ask ourselves, if we're not experiencing any, or not even inclined to, we're so bored, like, oh my God, I have to chant, this is a monumental task. Then we have to ask, what are our thoughts? So a lot of times people say, I didn't say anything, I didn't do anything. But what were you thinking? And so Krishna takes, it's not called Krishna actions, is called Krishna consciousness. What is your consciousness? Anyone can put on a show for anyone. If we want to be actors, then go to Hollywood. You could get paid for it. But this is called Krishna consciousness. What is your consciousness? So Krishna takes into account not your actions, your words, but what is your conscience? What is your intentions? And if we're not getting any taste. So Prabhupada compares the three stages of chanting to a mango fruit. Now, take an unripe mango fruit. If you eat an unripe mango fruit, you're like, ugh, this is disgusting, right? It's unripe. This is compared to chanting Nam Aparad, offenses to the holy name. Namabas, the fruit is a little bit more ripe, but it's still not sweet. Then he compares Shuddhanam to a fully ripe fruit. So if we're not experiencing any sweetness, any Siyat Krishnanam Charitadi Sitapiya Veda Pitu Patata Rasanasa Naroshika Nu. This verse says that the holy name of Krishna, his charita, his character, and of course Krishna doesn't come alone, he comes with his devotees. That the holy name of the Lord, his character, his pastimes, his devotees, they're sweet. They're sita. They're sweet. Sita means like sugar candy. They're very sweet like sugar candy. But if we have the disease of avidya, this avidya is compared to jaundice. I don't know exactly what jaundice is, but I could take it for granted that Srila Prabhupada knows, so he describes it. So if you have a disease known as jaundice, that if you taste anything sweet, then it would taste bitter. It would taste. So we're currently tasting the holy name. But why is it bitter? You can ask yourself, if it's bitter, then you can ask yourself, why is it bitter? It probably comes from namaparad. Offenses, like I said, offenses don't just begin with your words or your actions, it begins in your mind. So if it's bitter, and not only that, so what's the antidote? So there's something called the problem or the diagnosis, and there's something called the solution or the medicine. So what's the medicine for this jaundice of ignorance? Siya Krishnanam charitadi sitapiya vedya pitupatata rasanasa narochikanu kintu adara anudinam kalu saiva jushta swadwi. I was just practicing this verse the other day, but it's not coming, so it's not flowing so much. But the antidote, the medicine is anudinam. And the very anudina means chant it every day. Chant it every day. But the previous word before anudina was kintu adarat. So adarat means carefully. So it says carefully chant the holy name every day. Now, what does carefully mean? There's something that says it's better to be safe than sorry. So carefully in this context is Bahu Jama Kade Yadi Shravanam Kirtan Tabutana Paya Krishna Pade Primadan. That we will not experience the holy name, or we will not get the sweetness, the primadan, if we do not carefully chant it. So what is carefully? What does Prabhupada describe? What is carefully chanting the holy name? So he describes it in the purport of this very famous verse from the Adi Leela, chapter 8, verse, what did I say, 16? 8:16, yeah. I believe 8:16, Bahu Jamakari. So he describes what is carefully chanting the holy name means. Trinada Pisuni Chena, Tador Ivasahi Shnuna, Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. So he says, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, he uses the word strictly. One should strictly follow Lord Chaitanya's verse of being more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, and ready to offer all respect to others without expecting respect in return. In this way, one can experience the sweetness of the holy name. So, in the material world, they're the opposite. People are more prouder than a politician, more intolerant than a child, and they're ready to offer all disrespect to others while always expecting respect in return. And so we see this is in so many pastimes. Daksha, he offered all disrespect to Lord Shiva, and he was expecting respect in return. Durvasamuni, he offered all disrespect to Ambarish, and he was expecting respect in return. So we can ask ourselves, in the final analysis, we may say, I haven't said anything or I haven't done anything, but there's something called your thoughts and your body language. What are you thinking? And this is also the form where the disrespect begins within your mind. And so another analogy I'd like to share in this regard is that there's a very beautiful quote. It says, no single raindrop ever considers itself responsible for the flood. No single raindrop ever considers itself responsible for the flood. So we're all in a community of devotees. And suppose, just like the other day, a few days ago, there was one of the worst, it was basically like a monsoon the other day. Everything was like flooded, right? Within like less than like half hour. So, what does this mean? That means we all can either we could live our lives in one of two ways. We can send out a flood of negativity, or we could build the ship of our character. So like I said, even if you don't say something negative or do something negative, even if you're thinking something negative, that adds to just like you could walk in a room, nobody could say anything. You're like, ooh, I feel the tension, the negativity, right? Everyone's face looking all mad and stuff. And so you could feel, so that also contributes to the overall negativity within the community. And so what's the biological response when people send us a flood of negativity? Oh, if you're going to send me a flood of negativity, then I'll retaliate with another flood of negativity. This is precisely what happened in the Lord Shiva Daksha pastime. Long story short, there was a princess named Parvati. So Parvati, she went up to her father, a king named Daksha. She says, my dear father, I met the man of my dreams. And he was like, really? Wow, he was thinking, he must be a prince, he must be wealthy. And then when she introduced the man of her dreams to her father, it was Lord Shiva. Now, if anyone doesn't know who Lord Shiva is, he has dreadlocks, matted hair. He covers his body in ashes from dead bodies. He wears skull bone and a snake garlands. He has a kopin, and he wears a scorpion belt. This is the man of your dreams? Are you kidding me? So, in other words, Daksha, he was pure on the outside, but why wasn't he happy? He wasn't pure on the inside. Look at Lord Shiva. He wasn't pure on the outside, but why was he happy, content, peaceful? He was pure on the inside. So therefore, we see spiritual life is not what's going on externally, but what's going on internally. What are your thoughts? So what is the use of being pure, rich, educated, if you're still miserable? The whole purpose of purity is to give happiness. The purpose of material wealth is to give happiness. But if you're still miserable, despite being externally pure, and despite being materially wealthy, and you're still not happy, then what is the use? On the other hand, you may not be so quote-unquote externally pure or externally wealthy, but if you're internally pure, if you're internally wealthy, then you're completely content. So in this pastime, it's described that Daksha was very furious at the so-called man of his daughter's dreams. But anyways, he put that aside, and he had something to attend to, a universal banquet. So it's described that all the members of the universe, the Sangha, Varuna, all the demigods, all the different presiding deities of many different planets, they came in one place to this universal sacrifice. And to perform a yajna, well, hence sacrifice. That's what yajna means. And so there was, when Daksha entered the arena of the sacrifice, everyone stood up in respect for Daksha except one person, Lord Shiva. And Daksha became so furious. Now, this is a very important lesson in our own life that I mentioned many times before. So, Daksha had 99% of the presiding personalities within the universe offering him respect. Only one person didn't offer him respect. And that was enough to take away 100% of his happiness. And so, it's like a white wall. If you're painting a wall, just like we met our friend Raphael, he's a painter. And if he painted somebody's wall and he missed the spot, they'll explode. They're like, we're not paying you your salary. And they'll find so many faults, right? Even for us, even if there was one quarter-sized black spot on our wall, we're like, the whole wall is ruined. And this is our situation, our biological response, that despite having so many things to be grateful for, still we focus on this one thing. And this results in the death of our character. Not only the death of our character, but the death of our relationships. So nobody wants to hear people complain all the time about so many things. And so in this way, Lord Shiva ignored Daksha, not on purpose, but it's described that he was connected to Krishna. He was in such samadhi trance. Just like when people are on their phones or on their internet, they do not notice anything around them, right? Actually, many people have lost their life from being so absorbed on their phone. They will cross, metro train tracks and get killed by tracks because they were so absorbed in their phone. And the metro tracks, the metro train is so quiet. That's a scary train to be around because you don't hear until you're dead, basically. It's like, yeah. So you really don't hear it until you're dead, basically. You're like, wow, I feel so light now. That's because you're a spirit, you're dead. And why? Because people are so absorbed in their phones. In much the same way, Lord Shiva, he was so absorbed in Krishna consciousness that he did not notice Daksha into the arena. But that did not prevent Daksha from criticizing Lord Shiva. So as mentioned before, just as criminals who escape from prison will cause problems for all of human society, so when our bad qualities escape from us, they cause problems for us and potentially for others. So Daksha, he let a inner demon escape. And what was that? Speculation. He was thinking, Lord Shiva, he's ignoring me on purpose. Just as Parikshit Maharaj assumed the sage Samika Rishi ignored him on purpose. So speculation is an inner demon. And how do we subdue speculation? With education. And what does that mean? That means Trinadapi Suni Chena Toro Eva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sarahri. Offer all respect to others, but don't expect respect. And why don't we expect respect? Because as soon as we speak some negative word, then we realize, oh, I jumped to conclusion. Now I have to eat my words. I have to suffer for the consequences. So therefore, there's a saying, it's better to be safe than sorry. So therefore, this is why Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Orva Bahu Kari Kohan Shuna Sarva Loka, Nama Suche Ganti Padakante E Shloka. That one should string this shloka. If you don't know many shlokas, just like we may know many shlokas, right? But if we do not know this one shloka, this Trinada Pisuni Chena shloka, then we'll get ourselves in trouble, right? Like Buddha says, he says, just like Durvasa Muni, he knew all the scriptures. He could present speeches of the scriptures composed of thousands of words. He could tell you the etymology of each word, the origin of each word, and he could, he was a Sanskrit scholar. But because he couldn't practice one word, humility, he got himself in trouble. His character died. So therefore, Lord Buddha, he says, even though a speech be 1,000 words, but made up of senseless words. One word of sense is better, which if a man hears, he becomes quiet, peaceful, and humble. Urva bahu kari konhashuna sarvaloka, namasuchi ganti parakanta e shloka. So if you do not know any shloka, but learn this one shloka, Trinadapi Suni Chena Torah, and string this shloka on the thread of the holy name and wear it on your neck for continuous remembrance. And this is the recommendation of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And so, like I said, you may know so many shlokas, but if you're not humble, then what happens when you're put in a provoking situation when somebody ignores you? Just like Samika ignored Parisha Maharaj, or like Daksha, Shiva ignored Daksha. So we may know so many shlokas, but as soon as somebody ignores it, what happened? None of the shlokas come out, just curse words. Why? Because Dhyayato Vishayam Pumsaha Sangas Teshu Bhajayate. We have this kama, this desire. And what is this desire? This desire to be respected, especially respected more above others. So in this pastime, it's not only that Daksha was proud, but he was also envious, and Prabhupada says in this purport. Why? Because although Daksha was given one of the highest seats at the banquet, still, there was only a few people who got higher seats than him. Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma, and the man of his daughter's dreams, Lord Shiva. So he was thinking, a bum, a homeless bum, he got a better seat at this prestigious banquet than me? This is an outrage. So therefore he spoke negative words to Lord Shiva. So when Daksha, he criticized Lord Shiva, then what happens? Even Lord Shiva's followers criticized Daksha. Then when Lord Shiva's followers criticized Daksha's followers criticized Lord Shiva's followers. And in this way, they start cursing each other. Now, in the previous age, when you curse somebody, the curses, they were very powerful sages, right? And literally, they all curse each other, meaning, I curse you to lose your ear. Like their ears will come up. I curse you to lose your nose. I curse you to, that your leg will be dislocated from you. So in this way, it was just a whole brawl of negativity, a flood of negativity, right? And guess what Lord Shiva did? He just walked away. He was disappointed not only at Daksha's followers, of course, but he was also disappointed at his own followers. Now, naturally, we hear that when another devotee, especially our guru or our god brother, is being offended, generally speaking, that's very natural, right? If somebody wants to criticize your mother or your brother, then naturally you would stand up for them, right? You would stand up for them naturally. That's just natural. Same thing is described by Prabhupada in many verses that yes, when your guru, your god brother is being offended, then naturally the natural result is that you say something. But here's the but. What do you think the but is? The but is if your own guru is there, Shiva was there, then you ask your own guru, how should I respond to this circumstance? No, but none of Shiva's followers asked them. They just responded, impulsively. So if your own guru there, more than likely your guru just say, just be Trinadapi Suni Chena, just tolerate. But naturally, if he's not there, then naturally you'll take another measure. But if your own spiritual teacher is there, you may say, how should I respond to such a circumstances, right? But Lord Shiva's followers acted impulsively. So in this way, it was just a flood of negativity and everyone completely drowned in misery. So as I was mentioning before, there are two ways we can respond to circumstances. We could either send out a flood of negativity or build the ship of our character. So when Daksha and Daksha's followers sent out a flood of negativity to Lord Shiva and his followers, how did they respond? What was the biological response? They also sent out a flood of negativity. So in this way, everyone's drowning in misery, in offenses and curses. So what's the solution? Samsara sindum ati dushanam atita sho nanya plavo bhagavata purushotamasa lila kata rasini shevanam antarena. It says, if you want to cross this sindum, this ocean of negativity, this flood of negativity, of samsara and all the drama that comes with it, then you have to build a boat. And what is this boat composed of? Is it composed of wood? Is it composed of metal? No, it's composed of Lila Kataras and Nishevana Ansarena, the nectarian pastimes of Krishna. And what are the pastimes of Krishna meant to teach us? Yasyasti Bhaktir Bhagavati Akinchana Sarvagunais Tatra Samasate Sura Harava Bhatta Sukuto Mahaguna Mano Ratena Dasati Davato Bahihi. It says that Sarvagunais, just like a ship, what is the ship composed of? It's composed of many different parts. You have the steering wheel, the rudder, the decks, the hull. And what are these ships meant to do? They're meant to keep your ship afloat and so that it can move towards its destination. So what are all these sarvagunis, these qualities we're meant to cultivate? They're meant to keep our peace of mind afloat so that we can move properly towards our spiritual destination: humility, tolerance, forgiveness, etc. And you can only practice these qualities when there is a flood of negativity. So there's this famous saying: ships don't sink because of the water around them. Ships sink because of the water that gets in them. We can't stop everything on the outside: opposition, criticism, rumors, or traffic. But if we allow what's on the outside to get on the inside, then we'll sink into depression, fear, anger, and vengeance, like Daksha and like Petishimara. There's also another saying. It says, people should live in the world, but not be filled with it. A ship lives in the water, but if the water gets into the ship, she sinks. So people may live in the world, but if the world gets into them, they sink. So Daksha, he allowed the world, this neglect, this being ignored, to get inside him. So he sank into offenses. Same with Lord Shiva's followers. So this is our choice in life, and this is precisely why we hear the Bhagavatam. And there's many things can be said, but since it was a spontaneous class. But finally, the conclusion, like I said, is that in the final analysis, for those who are pramata, deluded by their ego, then what is today's verse says? I have no idea what today's verse says because I flipped the page. Today's verse says, to repeat, to drive the point home, today's verse says, a man obsessed with thoughts of what he thinks needs to be done, like Daksha, set others straight. I need to humble Lord Shiva, or Petisha, I need to humble Samikarisha. This is what we think is important, to set people straight. But when we're confronted with death, and what happens? When Petisha Maharaj was cursed to die within 7 days, do you think he cared who ignored him? Suppose you have a terminal illness. Do you care who ignores you? Do you care who's spreading rumors about you? No, you're about to die. And so we should not wait till death to get serious about our Christian consciousness. Let's get serious about it now. Because why? We're always on our deathbed. So stop worrying about who's criticizing you, who's neglecting you. Krishna has provided so many people in your life to show you love, to show you respect. Be grateful. Be grateful. You know, we're not like Prahlad. We're not getting people who's trying to do pitchforks at us, throw us off of a mountain, trying to fry us like a pakora or smash us in elephants like a chapati. No, we just get a little, and that's necessary to keep us humble. Suppose everyone's glorifying us all the time. Do you think you'll remain humble? No, you will not. I'll answer that for you. Even though I'm criticizing you, I'm justifying my criticism. So nobody can remain humble by being always glorified. We need some resistance. Just like if you're an athlete, can you become a powerful athlete with no resistance? No, you have to lift weights, you have to work out, you have to have some resistance. So how will we become spiritually strong unless we have some resistance? How will we remain truly humble unless we have some resistance? So Krishna gives everyone resistance, and he's using other devotees as instruments. And this is the very important point to avoid aparadhs. This is the main point to avoid aparadhs, and it's many scriptural references for this, is that we can respond to opposition in one of two ways. Oh, this devotee is covered by the Lord's Mahamaya, meaning his material energy, meaning he's a jerk. That's one response. But the better response is that, whether it's true or not, one response is that this devotee is covered by the Lord's Yogamaya, his spiritual illusory energy, meaning the Lord is sending this devotee to test my character. Now, it doesn't matter whether or not that's true or not, but that's one way you avoid offenses. So, Krishna, everyone has their lessons through different devotees, and we cannot focus on how Krishna is teaching them or giving lessons to them. But there's a saying, better to be safe than sorry, right? So, whenever we experience any resistance, any opposition, oh, this devotee, he's covered by the Lord's Yogamaya, his illusory spiritual energy, and the Lord is sending him to give me some resistance to test my good qualities, because you cannot practice good qualities unless you have resistance. Just like I'll end with this point, a rich teenager will never tell his father, "My dear father, I forgive you for buying me a Corvette for my birthday. I'll tolerate my $50 million inheritance once I graduate from high school." No, you tolerate and forgive people who give you a flood of negativity. And how do you do that? You build the ship of your character. You build your yasyasi bhate bhagavati akanchana sarvagunis tatra samasate suraha. So thank you, everyone, for that. Are there any points to further elaborate on this discussion? And normally I would do interactive and questions, but since this was a spontaneous class, I was just kind of, I didn't take any participation during the class, but.
Well, we don't have much time. Let's try to finish 45. But I was going to say that this pramata, or being inflicted by the false ego, is very easy. I mean, what you say was a very to the point of, one have to, there's all these recommendations that the Shastras is giving us in terms of how to counteract that influence of the false ego by cultivation of character. And this character, of course, Lord Chaitanya gave us, Trinara Pisu Nichina, you mentioned. Pramata makes us, being very acute in seeing how others are not properly reacting according to these instructions. So, you should be tolerant, you should be humble, you should be forgiven, or forgive, how you say?
Forgiven?
To be able to forgive others, But somehow other is so difficult to see it in oneself. How intolerant I am, that actually any little sort of provocation, I, ready to react, but I don't see that so much on myself. And if someone comes and tells me, "Hey, Prabhu, remember, it doesn't necessarily so much apply to me." So at the end, we've seen so much this in our communities of devotees. It's constantly this tension that you said. One comes into the room and sometimes he feels this tension, these divisions, But we don't see, the part that we're playing on it. That how my tolerance is so thin, that I can't, I get provoked by any silly thing that someone else, may do or say or things like that. So it's not easy. It's not as easy to apply as is to say it. Somehow or other, these principles of Trinara Pisu Nichina really needs, some deep application and some deep. So it is true, we have to offer respects, and that's what cultivating. We have not to expect respect towards ourselves. We have to apologize, but we also should be able to accept apologies. Should be able to do all these things that are, reciprocal, that are part of, tolerate, that type of thing, being humble. All the thing. So it's quite a struggle, and it's quite, it requires mercy, it requires purification. And something that you brought up that I saw, that you quoted, it was very nice, that, Krishna Katha, creating opportunities for people to really get into the purificatory, activities of hearing and chanting together is is in one sense the panacea or the solution. So I just want to comment on that.
Thank you. You brought to a couple of things in mind, many things, but I'm trying to think of them. In one sense, you said it's very hard when we're confronted with a provoking circumstances. Still, despite knowing so much about humble, still, why do we react just like any normal materialist? Well, we can't do anything without Krishna's mercy. Atapumbir dvija shrestha varnasham vibhagashaha swanutitasa dharmasa samsiddhir haritoshana. This verse says the perfection of life is haritoshanam. That means to please Hari, the Lord. And what does Hari means? It means he who removes your ego by which you respond to circumstances in a negative way. So he's the only one, but we have to focus on whether or not we're pleasing to him. Now, like I said, anyone could be respectful externally, but it's not called Krishna actions, it's called Krishna consciousness. And it's much more harder to correct your internal behavior because nobody's there to see it. So that's why we hear. So the whole point is that if we're not responding to circumstances like a devotee, like Prahlad, like Haridas Thakur, even to any small provocation, then we have to check not our Krishna words, not our Krishna actions, but our Krishna consciousness. And it's so much easier to be duplicitous. Just like in an article by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Sri Guru Tapa Seva, Sri Guru Tapa Seva and something. He says real humility is never found in an external show of humility, which is actually duplicity. So we cast how duplicitous we are when we're associating with devotee. Oh, she thinks she cute, she thinks her sari is this. All this stupid stuff that we hold that's very important, all this negative stuff. So, and the last point, so how do you please a doctor with money, right? With money. And if you go to the doctor and you have a broken leg, now, is it possible to tolerate surgery without any anesthesia? No, you need anesthesia. You need the doctor's mercy. So we need that anesthesia of Krishna's mercy that when we're being attacked, on a psychic level, then and what's our currency? So you please the doctor with your insurance, your money, right? The more money, the better, right? And you get the anesthesia. If you don't have the money, you don't get the anesthesia. So that means even a paper cut will hurt you. But even if you have the right funds, then even if you're getting cut all open, it will not hurt you like Haridas Thakur. So what is our currency? Well, one of our currency is Trinada Pisuni Chain, a total Sahija. Offer Amani Namanadina, offer honor, respect. So we can ask ourselves, so Prabhupada says this in the 7th canto, chapter 5, verse 12. He says, one should not be proud of his own service, but one should praise the service of others, of other devotees. So we can ask ourselves on a daily basis, how often, what's the ratio of us praising other devotees versus the ratio of us criticizing devotees? And if the ratio of us criticizing devotees is like this, and the ratio of us glorifying devotees, and I don't mean praising devotees with motivation. I mean, Savai Punsam Pado Dharmo Yato Batera Dosajaya Haikutuki Apritihata Yayatma Superdi without any motive. If this ratio is very low, then we could expect not to respond to provoking circumstances in a very negative way. Why? Because we're not performing Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. So that's my little 2 cents. So thank you. I guess I'll end there. So, all right. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Glory be to God.